Hello, Laurence.
Hi, Martin.
um, Now, I know you because I live with you, but perhaps some people don't know who you are. So, would you just give us a quick rundown of who you are and why you are speaking today?
Well, um, I'm Laurence Cummings, musical director of the London Handel Festival, and I thought this time for this forum I would actually talk a little bit about my experiences of lockdown, and in fact, my husband Martin has very kindly agreed to interview me. So, we're in the process of talking about lockdown, which of course has now been going on for over 4 months.
So, you being the artistic director of the London Handel Festival, when did you receive the news or make the decision or come to the decision that it just wasn't going to be able to go ahead?
Well, it was quite a day. It was March, of course, and it was the day before, I think, our performance of Truth, the Triumph of Time and Truth, and it came. The news came. The Prime Minister's announcement came at the end of our rehearsal. Fortunately, we'd managed to do a run through of the piece, which, looking back, of course, is very poignant. It ends with a very, very beautiful ethereal aria, which had moved us to tears. Um, but at the time, the news was devastating. To have to cancel the following rehearsal and, of course, the concert. People had travelled down from Scotland. Um, we were all just really excited about coming together and performing, and then suddenly it all went. It was a very, very odd feeling of loss, feeling of sadness, feeling of worry, because of course of the uncertainty, which still hasn't gone away, um, and just really a realization, I suppose, that when you're in the process of preparing something like such a big work, such as the Triumph of Time and Truth, then it's like it's like a steamroller. You're in a process, and to have that curtailed was really truly shocking.
What does it actually mean though to cancel a festival? What needs to be done to cancel a festival?
Well, the news went out in electronic form to all the musicians, to all the people who'd bought tickets. I believe there was one sweet audience member who isn't on the internet and did actually turn up, having suspected it would be cancelled, but turned up anyway. And so it's very much a damp squib, really, at that particular moment in time. Um, all the energy just goes out of it. I mean, we were lucky we had actually managed to start the festival. We did a wonderful production of Susanna in conjunction with the Royal Opera House. But of course, I wasn't conducting that. I was mentoring the conductor there, which was a huge pleasure. But I actually didn't play a single note in the London Handel Festival this year, which is the first time, I think, probably for 30 years. So it's quite a thing for me.
So, presumably, lots of money has been lost, and also lots of freelance musicians have lost lots of work.
Yes, I mean, with the London Handel Festival, we're incredibly lucky that our audience were so generous. Many people donated their ticket money rather than asking for a refund, and several have had it as a credit note for next year. And of course, that meant the festival was able to pay a percentage of the fees that were due to the players and the singers, and that was really a lifeline at that moment. But yes, I mean, so much has been cancelled. We talked about loss. I mean, by the time we got to March, already the Göttingen Handel Festival had been cancelled, so I wasn't going to Germany for 2 months. That had already been arranged. I've had no summer festivals. Again, various people have been very generous, and you get a small percentage of your fee as compensation. But I suppose with everything being cancelled, looking into the future, there's really no certainty when things will come back. So managing the uncertainty, I think, is one of the most stressful things I've found. Uncertainty in terms of your financial status, in terms of your artistic status, because you've got to keep practicing, you've got to keep preparing, and indeed I can apologise at this stage that I've been less than productive for my offerings for this forum to play the pieces of Handel that I've never performed before, but strangely things got very busy with some online projects, and also well, as you know, we've decided to move house. Only we could move house in a pandemic, but yeah, so we're in the process of moving to East Sussex.
What would you say then, and we'll flip this around afterwards so it's not totally depressing, but would you say have been the worst bits of lockdown? And then you could perhaps balance that by saying what your hopes might be of anything positive, if anything, that come out of it.
Well, I think one of the things discovered early on is it was important not to pretend that you're feeling okay, because very often I wasn't feeling okay. We've been homeschooling. That was very challenging. I mean, wonderful to have time with the family, of course, but with all that uncertainty in the air, it was hard to really truly enjoy it. And yeah, I think it's just difficult when you feel like you've lost your mojo, and your normal things that you do to make yourself feel better. I mean, for me, is to make music with other people. And I mean, I've mentioned that the online provision that I've been doing, but ultimately, that's very, very frustrating, because you have to make everything so obvious so that the next person along in the chain can listen to your recording and play on top of it, which pretty much means it has to be metronomic, which allows for no real bending of the time, no stretching, no shaping. It's all very, very monochrome. And that's not really what I signed up for. I love playing with other people, and as indeed Mr. Handel was, a very social musician, and I think the looking forward, it's rather like that moment where you and I had our first takeaway coffee, which felt so decadent after 3 months. Looking forward, when we do come back together again, I think it's going to be amazing to experience that feeling of fellowship and that just wonderful feeling of playing together. And in fact, I am very, very lucky, because I already have had one little experience like that. Met up with a colleague, and in a large room with suitable distancing, and just did a session of chamber music, and the joy was just palpable, really, because it's just such a sensual experience making music. You are using it touches you in a very deep way, and that was a joy, and of course maybe look forward to what hopefully will be not too far away.
And do you think that the festival next year is going to be impacted by what's happened?
Well, yes, I'm sure it will be. Apart from anything else, we're trying to put in some of the things that were cancelled from last year. Whether we can do what we're realising, and we've sort of planning for every scenario, I think, really, the worst to the best. The best is that we have a fully programmed festival. Somehow, perhaps we have a vaccine, perhaps people are prepared to go and sit in big venues with not too much distance between them, or perhaps we have to have a total rethink and be very imaginative with our programming. I suspect it'll be a mixture of the both. That some things will be able to take place, but we will have to keep a weather eye on it and just see what is practical.
It's potentially it's catastrophic, isn't it? Because most all theatres can't open at the moment. There's not really any clear indication of when they can open. So potentially, if there can't be a festival as you know it next year, even has that crossed your mind? Or?
Yes, I mean the uncertainty is cruel. I think just not to know, and part of you is reluctant to be positive and look forward because actually that just feels unrealistic at times. And certainly when it first crashed, I actually found it more comforting to be pessimistic, because it's like that moment in the film Clockwise, where John Cleese has a disastrous day having got on the wrong train, finds himself up to his legs in mud in the middle of a field and shouts, "It's not the despair, it's the hope that I can't bear." And I think that's true of this situation. If you dare to hope, then it suddenly can come crashing down again, and then you get onto such a roller coaster of really difficult emotion and difficult dealing with it. Musicians are very adaptable. We can adapt, and we can certainly distance and play. We have plans to do that for things in the future, but we will just have to carry on. As I've mentioned, the online thing is very frustrating and not very satisfactory, but the technology is getting better and better, so there is some merit in keeping going with that, I think. But yeah, I think we're all sort of really hoping for some way that we can come together and make music again.
What would Handel have thought about it all, do you think? What would his response have been?
I think he would have been very upset. I think he would have been very concerned for his musicians. He would have, I'm sure, carried on composing, but I mean, he may well have also had a big depression because I mean, he was such a workaholic really and lived for music. So I think to have had that taken away would have been very difficult for him. But I do know he would have been very sympathetic to his musicians and probably helped them through in whatever way he could.
Well, we will keep our fingers and our toes and our eyes crossed for next year. And we really hope that things improve.
Indeed. And I mean, to end on a positive note, I think we all have learned a lot from this. It's been difficult for everyone, and I think it's important to acknowledge that it's been very, very difficult times, and the provision of music and theatre has been so important for the nation, from streamed performances through to just watching very well produced television programmes, shows the quality that's out there and that we need. And we have to keep these fantastic industries going and find a way to do that. I think the positive thing is that we realise how important it is to us, and I'm also very, very grateful to our supporters for their generosity, to the board for their fantastic support, and to Samir Savant for his unfailing work in keeping the festival going. And I just long for us all to be back together bringing the music of Handel to life again.
Thank you, Laurence.
Thank you, Martin.